everybody, welcome to McFarland Minutes, our weekly podcast hosted by Natalie McFarland, the and founder and president of McFarland Productions, and Scout Foster, our outreach marketing manager. In these episodes, you can expect deleted scenes, in-depth campaign reviews, project highlights, marketing concepts, book reviews, and a deep dive into the creative process at Autobiographies Films, and of course, invaluable lessons on mentorship, leadership, and the business of it all. We are so excited to be releasing our episodes every Sunday as your soft launch to Monday. Hey, and welcome to episode 6 of McFarland Minutes, your soft launch to Monday. Today, we're doing something that we're super pumped about. We do this all the time at McFarland Productions. We have an internal book club. I really feel like we need to come up with a better name for our book club, Scout. Would you work on... Yeah, will you work on wordsmithing that for me? You'd probably be much better at that than me.
I'll add it to the list.
Something with an alliteration, probably. Anyway, so at McFarland Productions, we set a standard of continuing education. Part of that is our book club. So we have read quite a few books sort of together. Some of these we kind of accidentally stumbled upon reading together, primarily Scout and I at first, and then we've kind of expanded it to the rest of the team. This particular episode, we're going to go through some of our favorites as a whole. So we're going to go through 6, 7 books, something like that. But in future episodes, we're going to do it with the whole team immediately finishing a book so that you can jump in on some of our book club readings. The reason we do this is because each one of these books has caused a change either in McFarland Productions, Off Your Rocker Films, or how we do something for one of our clients and how we really think about business, leadership, marketing, the whole thing. So I feel like these books are great examples of that. We're going to definitely talk about some of our favorites. I think most people probably by this point know that I am an audiobook nerd. Scout, you like physical books more, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do both. I'll do both. But I usually have a physical book I'm reading and then also listening to an audiobook, not at the same time, but at the same time,
Simultaneous is not it for me. I've got to finish one and move on to the next one. Yeah, I'm much more of an audiobook fan. That being said, if I like a book enough, it ends up in that pile back there. So some of these ones, most of these ones are sitting back there that we'll talk about in this episode. The last episode, episode 5 of McFarland Minutes, we talked to Steve from Floribama. And in that episode, I had mentioned a book, Unreasonable Hospitality, because Floribama is really kind of a class in that, right? Now, the book Unreasonable Hospitality is talking about a 5-star restaurant in New York City. Floribama is, a beach bar and marina and on the beach in Florida. So very different vibe, but they do both this concept of unreasonable hospitality extremely well. Unreasonable Hospitality is a hands down one of my top 10 favorites for sure.
I agree.
Yeah. What do you think about it, Scout?
I love Unreasonable Hospitality for many reasons. I think for me, it really touched on culture, and I think internal and external culture, which we've kind of already talked about, our own company culture, but I think Unreasonable Hospitality just tied our brains together almost on internal and external. But yeah, this is one of my favorite books that we've read. I would put it probably at number 2. I think I finished this in 2 days. I listened to this one, but
yeah. This one is really cool. I love that the author is also the person who's reading it and
yes.
The person who experienced it is all one person, right? So this is point of view of the author and his experience in building his brand. I just love I feel like every page you turn, there's some little tidbit in there that really kind of I don't know, can make you think about how could I be doing it differently, both internally and externally. Specific, not even just in the hospitality industry. I feel like this applies to any business, really.
Oh, absolutely. I just feel like hospitality, you usually think of tourism or hotels or restaurants are the main things that I think of when I think of hospitality, but this, I mean, it's changed the way that we do things in marketing and
Yeah.
communications.
Oh, definitely. Um, I think like one of the little like I think one of the first little like glimmers you get from him that I felt like was just such a cool thing is here in our notes that we had written down when we did our book club, but the service is black and white, hospitality is color. That is such a
Hmm.
good like comparison to that, and I feel like there's maybe a little bit of that in like sales versus marketing, right? So like you could
Right.
basically take that whole thing and do that as well. Not to say that sales are not colorful, right? Like I think you still have to build a relationship with the client, but I think that like if we're talking about in a general business, like hospitality and marketing should be very much hand
Hmm.
in hand, and really everywhere in your business, but particularly on that front for me. But so the book is talking about 11 Madison Park, which is an incredible restaurant in New York City, and has won I think maybe every award ever. But in the book, he talks a lot about like how did he one turn like working at this restaurant into a career, right? I think the restaurant business, like retail, like others, have a fairly high turnover rate. And so,
Hmm.
how to figure out how to make that a great place to work was just as important as it was a great experience for their customer, which I thought was like just absolutely on par with our company culture episode, right? Where good company culture equals happy people equals
Hmm.
happy clients or whatever awesome
Yeah.
line that you
Yeah.
had pulled out right there at the very end of that episode. But I feel like Unreasonable Hospitality is a class in how to make that happen.
100%. I do. Do you remember in the book? I'm gonna get, I think, like the job position wrong, but do you remember they had dream weavers or dream builders or
Yes,
dream makers or I think it
something
started
like
with,
that.
I think it was something dream. Dreamweaver is an Adobe thing, I think, so it might not be that. But um they had people that would like literally buy gifts for people or make moments happen for their customers that had absolutely nothing to do with their food at the restaurant,
Oh,
but
yeah. And
everything
sometimes
to do with their experience there.
sometimes counterintuitive too, right? So like
Yeah, they bought.
one of the examples was like a group of guys came in, I think on a business trip or something, and they're like,
Mhm.
"We feel like we've experienced everything New York except a New York City hot dog." And so like that offhand comment to the waiter turned
Yeah.
into this. I wish we could think of what the position name was, but we're gonna go with Dream Maker, right? Uh,
Yeah.
they communicated then with this dream team that then like basically executed on it, right? So like here they are in this five-star restaurant that like you're absolutely expecting it to be this over the top like incredible food, right? And not that hot dogs aren't, right? Like there's a place for a hot dog, especially a New York City street hot dog, but they went out and bought enough street hot dogs and then they like plated it like they would, right, at 11 Madison Park to make it very 11 Madison Park, and they said, well, now you've completed your New York City trip because they just made it happen. And like the like level of you get me that happened in that moment, right? Where like these guys were like really rounded out their trip, right? Like the
Mhm.
one thing missing, they 11 Martison Park wasn't going to let there be the one thing missing from the trip, right? And I
Yeah.
think that that should be something that you're looking for in any business is how do I complete the experience, right? How do I make this thing feel whole and so memorable that I've like made a dream come true for my customer in a way, right? Like how did I change their life in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. It was Dreamweaver, is the job title. I looked it
Oh,
up,
good.
but
I'm
I
glad
was
you
really
looked it up.
thinking. Yeah,
It's also a software, but
yeah, it says a person whose entire job is to find ways to go above and beyond, um, hospitality first cultures, like the little
Yeah,
description
and
I
like
give.
what a cool thing for a restaurant to do, right? Like when you think about a restaurant and you think about like the typical positions, there's like cook or like chef, right? And then like
Yeah.
their various chefs that work under them, usually in some specific thing. You have like hosts, waiters and waitresses, managers, bartenders, and that's
Yes.
like maybe the whole staff that you would think about. More obviously, the more stars the restaurant has, usually the more layers of that you get. But that
Right.
would be the general. What's not included in that is making dreams happen.
Yeah.
They
Literally.
did. I like there were so many examples in the book of crazy things that they did. I remember there was one that like got a painting done of something, and like there
Yes.
were such cool, just thoughtful about that
Hmm.
person. It was really for that person, right?
Well,
Like
it
it
was
was
incredibly
for
specific
them.
to that table, that one person at that one table.
Yeah.
You know,
I
like
mean, I would be
three
surprised
tables
if they
down, it was
ever
different.
I would be
Sorry.
surprised if they ever pulled the same thing twice. You know?
Right. Right.
Crazy. I
Yeah.
everything about that book was so cool, and I feel like we could spend an entire podcast on that, which is why in the future we're going to go into each individual book. But speaking of making a dream or an experience for someone, I think Know What You're For is probably right next, right?
Yes. So there's actually like a lot of similarities in Unreasonable Hospitality and Know What You're For. Um, One thing that I loved is like how they tie together, but they're almost like they're two completely separate books, and we got very separate. We were inspired in different ways from reading those books. Know What You're For was actually like the first one for me. I feel like that's kind of what started you and I reading books together, or like that's what
It
started the
developed the book club for
recommending.
sure.
It did. Yeah, so Know What You're For was actually one of my mom's books that she has a very nice, lovely display of her books, and she ended up giving it to me to read for kind of for work, but like it was never like this is exactly what you do. You should read about it. It was more so like, hey, I think you would really enjoy this book. I took a lot of notes. I think you could maybe take some as well. So Know What You're For, I read. It actually took me forever to read because that was before I was like really into the personal and professional development books. But when I finally finished it, I was like, this is the book. This is the one. So recommended it to you. You read it, and we completely reworked who we're for. Like
Yeah,
reworked,
for sure.
yeah,
I
everything.
feel like Know What You're For. Jeff Henderson, by the way, is the author. He's a great author, and I believe he also reads the book too. I'm pretty sure it's his voice in the audiobook. But he's such a likable person. He comes
Mhm.
primarily from like a church development background,
And
which
Chick-fil-A.
is and Chick-fil-A. That's right, and Chick-fil-A. And he just, Chick-fil-A is obviously unreasonable hospitality themselves, but
Mhm.
anyway, Jeff just does such a good job of like creating this sort of painting for you as you're going through it. And I felt like as I was reading it or listening to it in my case, that he was like putting words to concepts that like we were already about, like we already believed in, but being able to frame it up in his way was like just
Mhm.
such a clarity moment for us. And we definitely like reworked our mission statement. We at McFarland Productions mission statement, we reworked our vision statement. I think that we like completely changed our social strategy based on it, which I don't know if I should say completely changed. I think we like
We did, yeah.
redefined it and like really like got it back on course, really.
I think we just like
Because like
firmed it up some.
right, I feel like a lot of what we believe in, which is
Mhm.
be about your community and build an act like the word community to me is building an actual relationship
Mhm.
with your fan, your client, your customer, whatever you want to call them in your internal at your own companies. But the Know What You're For, like, is an internal statement, it's an external statement. I think that's what I just love about all of these books really is that they should be reflected both internally and externally.
Well, also the way that he sets up the book title is kind of a expression almost to us now. I remember working with our social team and they'd create great content, but I would question, who is it for? What are we doing here? What is the why
Mhm.
behind this?
Mhm.
So we've really changed our own marketing strategy and honestly created our own marketing theory that we did all believe in prior to this, but I think we just really solidified who we are for, and then in turn really helped our clients solidify who they are for, and like the problems they are solving and how they solve those is different now to us on like a communication level.
Mhm. I
Internally it's the same, but we just communicate it differently.
Sure. I feel like the key example in the book, right? Like where the know who you're for, the for
Hmm.
statement comes from. And I'm not going to remember the name of the town. I should have looked up it beforehand, but Jeff and his group of people were working to develop a new church in a new area,
I think
right?
it's Gwinnett or
Something like
Gwinnett,
that.
Gwinnett.
Gwinnett?
It's in Georgia. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Anyway, so they're developing a new one. They bought a site. They're going to rebuild, right? So there, it's a development. And I don't know about you guys, but our town has a Facebook group called "What's Happening in Douglas County," and
Mm-hmm.
or we've got like Roseburg Tracker, I think is another one. Anyway, every time a building like is being either built or redeveloped, right? Like a building went empty and now they're going to like replace it with something else and they're doing a bunch of construction. Every time that happens, we have like every single person is going to have a theory on what's going in there, right? And I feel like in Roseburg, it's either Target or Olive Garden every single time. Like people are
Wow.
like, it's Olive Garden. It's still not Olive Garden. Let me tell you that. And like the latest is like it's Target, right? Because we've had a couple of pretty large buildings where we've had companies move out. Like Albertsons recently moved out of Roseburg, and Target right now is like the rumor, which would be sweet. But
I would love that for
that's
you.
kind of not here nor there. But getting back to the book, they're working on developing a site, right? Instead of putting Gwinnett Church, I think the name, I think you're right. I think it is Gwinnett. Instead of putting the name of the church on the fence, they put for Gwinnett.
Yeah.
Like to
Stellar. Mind
me,
blowing.
that it is so simple. Like the word for is a three-letter word that I'm pretty sure you learn in before you even make it to school, right?
Yeah.
So how impactful, but how innovative at the same time to just say for Gwinnett.
I mean, it's literally like a love letter, I feel like, to the community. And I freaking love
Yes.
that.
Yes, it kind of
Like,
reminds
oh,
me a little bit of Adrian Brannon, the Buckaroo Girls
mm-hmm,
book that's Dear Cowgirl. You know, it's just
mm-hmm,
very like, who is it for? Like, what the care is in who you're serving, not in what you're doing.
mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just
Period.
it that book blows my mind. I feel like we should move on to the next one because we could go on that one in particular. We could go on forever.
You know how I know it was a
Okay,
good book too? Wait, hold on. I still have more to say about this. This is my
sure.
last wrap up.
Okay, you got it.
I feel like we know that it was a good book because there was a point after it where we felt wrong almost. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like we took like a hard look at, and maybe not like ourselves as people, but as marketers and as a company where we like, ooh, we have gotten it wrong somewhere along the way, which is really hard to admit. But this book really got us back on the track that we mapped out previously that we had gone a little bit astray from.
Hmm. Yeah, and I
Would you
think like
agree?
the big example for me, and it wasn't that I hated the campaign at all, but we did a Team Tuesday campaign, right? Where every Tuesday we posted a video of us. And like we were covering things like who's somebody in the industry that inspires you, what's something you love about your job. Like all those things are great and they are certainly about our people, but the series was so frequent that our social became too much about us and not
Hmm.
enough about who we were doing this for and why we were
Yeah.
doing it. So
Great
yeah, I
campaign.
think
Just
that
strategy could have been developed a little bit further.
oh, definitely. Yeah. I love Team Tuesday. I think that we came up with some really great things in that. But I just think like repositioning that could have been more the know what you're for model. And like, the opposite of that for us is like the here buy this culture, right?
Mhm.
Like, which is become one of I feel like I turned it into a phrase for us scouts
The
tired
TED
of
Talk.
hearing me see it. But I feel like here buy this culture is the absolute opposite of know who you're for. And we've got a future episode where we'll go way too far into that. But
Yeah, moving on.
anyway, yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, know what you're for. If you are working somewhere, if you are a marketer, if you are owner of a company, know what you're for is on the list. The one that started it all for me, and I've been reading books for a long time, these business and professional books. I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, that is just par for
Who
the
you are.
course. Yeah, it's just par for the course, right? You're going to want to study it and figure out how to do it better. Creativity Inc. was the first one that I read, and it's by Ed Camtrell. Hopefully, I'm getting his last name pronounced correctly, but he is, or what it was, the leader of Pixar and eventually Disney Animation when it all became the same thing. So that involves people like Steve Jobs, that involves Disney, that involves all of them, right? So, like, what a story to read of success. Pixar made some of my favorite childhood movies, right? Like, who didn't love Toy Story? Who didn't love Ants and A Bug's Life? Like, all of those were just incredible movies, and they did such a good job with those. But what's even cooler is what he did internally in order to create a culture that made it possible to come up with things like that, right? The number one thing that I took away from the book is that it's not, even if you have a hierarchical structure in a company, right? You better be able to listen to every single voice just as importantly as the next one in that company. Not one person should be afraid to say what they believe to be true, right? Everyone's comment, everyone's idea, especially if you've built yourself a really good team, which partially comes from this concept of being able to speak your mind, right? Every single person should get the opportunity to input, particularly because every single person's got a little bit different viewpoint on something, right?
Mhm.
They've got a little bit different experience of how they're contributing, right? Our social team has a very different experience than our video team, which has a very different experience than our copywriting team, right? So, like, what works for one maybe doesn't work for the other. In the book, instead of referring to it as like being truthful, right? Because I think all of us can agree, and the book points this out as well, that honesty is the best policy, right? If we're going to bring something from preschool back. But I think what I love so much was just this concept of candor and how to continually just absolutely work on every single part of the business to make sure that candor was possible, right? Where you didn't have, he goes right down to talking about like where people sit within a room and how the tables are set up, right? You don't want to put all the core leadership right at the middle of the table, and then you've got people behind you, along the walls in their situation. You've got like a 30-person table that's straight, and so you've got people like in a face-off sort of, and people around you where you've got this core conversation happening, and then you've got like the peanut gallery, right? Like
Just
that
standing there
was
looking awkward.
right. Like that was
Yeah.
huge. I also think that creativity, when you work at a creative business, like marketing and creative agency, like a film production company like we are, and really any business, I feel like every business requires creativity in order to move forward. But when you work in a creative business, you can get writer's block, you know? And like I feel like you've probably experienced that, Scout, where like a walk is pretty darn helpful, right? Moving
Right.
meetings help. Getting out and doing something that is not related helps.
Taking a shower, going to the
Sometimes, yeah,
grocery
washing your hair,
store.
yeah.
Yeah. Something that you
Being
can just
able
like mentally
to,
unplug.
yeah, and then also like balancing where you're encouraging people to do better, in Scout's words, in their personal life as well. That creativity is not only generated within the walls of your office or remote
Mhm.
offices in our case. I don't know. Creativity Inc. is like a love story for me, right, with business. And just like, how do you really care for your people so your people can really achieve the level of creativity and, efficiency and beautiful pieces of work and success. Like, you can really create something together when you've built people in an environment where they're allowed to do that.
Right.
So anyway, Creativity Inc. probably my top favorite to this day. I'm going to put it number one on my list, probably forever.
Permanent spot.
Yeah, yeah. Scout, do you want to talk about Atomic Habits? This is one that I read a really long time ago, so like I don't have a lot to input here because it's been so long, but you've been reading Atomic Habits. What do you think?
Yeah, so I've been listening to Atomic
Oh,
Habits, which is kind
sorry.
of big for me. Yeah, because I usually am a physical book reader, but um yeah, Atomic Habits I'm not done with yet, but just like a few things that have stuck out to me is I don't remember how many episodes ago this was, but I was talking to Matt. I think it might have been like 3 or 4 possibly for us. But we were talking to Matt at Little John Financial about retirement, and I had like an aha moment reading Atomic Habits that we as humans naturally value the present more than the future. So this is like, why did we overeat? If we knew that obesity was a problem that could follow up overeating, why do we not put money into our retirement if we know one day we are going to retire? So like there's a whole chapter on instant gratification and like how consequences are delayed and the rewards are immediate. So I thought that was a very interesting chapter. And then also this one I took mega notes on habit tracking. And if anyone knows me, you know that I am probably the worst tracker of things ever. I don't I'm not
I
really.
hate diets and things where you have to like track what you ate all
I
day
don't want
or
to.
like the count things like that is the worst kind of
Well,
like don't set me up for that.
right, right. I like to take it as it comes, I guess. Like I'm very much so a wing it type person. Um, I have
Wing it with
a
a
little
goal.
bit. Exactly. Yes, thank you. I was trying to put that more into perspective, but yeah, that I think that takes care of it. But um, in the habit tracking, I think this spans like a few chapters, but they mention how elite performers measure and track their progress, which really reminded me of our goal tracking spreadsheet. Like that's exactly what we're doing. We're tracking goals and making it a habit, which you can download we'll put it in the show notes for this. But anyways, love the habit tracker, like super simple way to do it. 3 reasons they give it to you. I'm not going to give it to you. You have to read the book. But yeah, love that. It also, do you know that, um, I don't know where we came up with this, but have you ever heard that it takes like 21 days to build a habit?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
I
know if
feel
that's
like
true.
there's different theories on like the length of time, but the point is you have to repeat it a lot.
Well, this book says it's forever because a habit is a lifestyle, not a finish line. So I'm
Okay.
like, ooh, so instead of thinking of like dieting as with an end date, you just need to have a healthy lifestyle is
Mhm.
really where I took that. But yeah, anyways, not done reading Atomic Habits or listening to it, but good notes there, small notes. If you are you know who I think would love this book? Katie Schrock. I don't know if she's already read it, but she's like an efficiency nerd who I love. But I almost feel like she could have written this book herself on all
Yeah,
of
I
her
mean, she and I have had
efficiency things.
conversations that she does from like she does a lot of like financial tracking stuff that I feel
Hmm.
like is right up this book's alley, right? Like very
Yeah,
atomic habit sort of way. So anyway, yeah,
yeah.
Katie, if you're listening, you need to read Atomic
I
Habits if you
hope you
haven't.
are. Um,
You better be.
we listen to your podcast. No, it's fine. No, I think I have not done with the book, but good. The instant gratification part in me loves like quick little things I can start implementing that are quick and small, which they also talk about like a 2-minute rule in this book where it should like set 2 minutes of your day out for this one goal habit, where it only should take you 2 minutes, or not that it should take you 2 minutes, but like do it for 2 minutes and then stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like if just do it for 2 minutes and stop, regardless of your progress on it. So I don't know. It's like just good things that I think you can just kind of pop in your day to help you,
Yeah.
do better, be better.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Um,
great lesson.
Speaking of another one, we actually have, I feel like there's three of these books on here that are really like an in progress sort of situation, which
Yes.
I
Yes.
just said that I don't read multiple things at once, but here I am. Main Street Millionaire, I've finished. I think you're still working on, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So, Main Street Millionaire is by Cody Sanchez, and this is really primarily like a business acquisition book, I'd say. Like, primarily that's the theme. That being said, it is still applicable to if you're trying to build a current business rather than buy a new one, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's particular chapters in that one that really can make you think about, like, how do I standardize a few of the things that we're doing, like standard operating procedures and that sort of thing. And then how do I set myself up, even if you never plan to sell your business, how do I set myself up as if I was, in order
Mm-hmm.
to get, number one, the best efficiency out of it, right? Businesses that sell are ones that are sellable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be most efficient, easy to follow, repeatable, like something that has good cash flow, right? I think anyone who's a business owner or is a manager in a business, is looking for all the same things that someone is looking for when they're looking to buy a business, right? So I think Main Street Millionaire has a lot of things in it that would, that definitely contributes to like procedural structure sort of thing. So anyway, Main Street Millionaire definitely on my list. Actually, getting the opportunity to go to Cody Sanchez's workshop in May, so maybe we talk more about that later. But
I didn't know
excited
that.
about that. Yeah, yeah. I don't think I
Where is
told you
it?
yet, but
Oh,
it's in
wow. This is
Austin.
news to me.
It's in Austin, so
Mm,
I'm gonna go down there and
nice.
it's kind of a limited conference, which is cool. That's the way I like
Mm-hmm.
them, right? Like, don't give me 10,000 people, give me like 100,
Right. Yeah.
so that like maybe I can actually
Mm-hmm.
talk
Learn something.
talk through some things, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I'm excited about that. Main Street Millionaire, definitely a recommended. Another one that I am actually still working on, I don't know, maybe you've finished the book, is Dead Fish Don't Swim Upstream.
Yeah, so I had to start reading that for one of my grad school classes. Still working on it because I've been doing like a chapter here and there to go along with our coursework. I think my biggest thing with this book isn't a particular thing, but I love how they include an action list at the end of every chapter.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
Like what a
thank
like
you.
structure in the book, like
Yes,
well
yes,
done.
yes. Because it gives you like you have a whole chapter of creating a business plan. Well, if you've never made a business plan, you don't know how to. But you have the chapter, but then the action items clearly list out for you how to do that, like how you can check that off of your list. And I love that because a lot of times I'm reading these books not because they're like applicable now, but I think they could be applicable later.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily have the means to do the thing right now. So I've been really liking this book. It's like a checklist, a task
Yeah.
list.
I think
I don't know
what's
if you have.
cool about like any of these books really is like some of them, like Dead Fish Don't Swim Upstream, Main Street Millionaire, are really leaning towards ownership of the business,
Mhm.
right? But anybody, if you work for a business or you work on a business, right?
Mhm.
Um, Either one is going to be able to learn something from this, right? Like if you're working for a business, like the bigger picture is really kind of spelled out. Like, why does ownership care about this thing? Or
Mhm.
how can we adjust our goals, our efficiencies in order to achieve this thing? I think it applies both ways, really. I think you can learn from it whether you own it or you work in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think too. If I know, I don't know how to exactly say this, but you as a business owner, me as your employee and part of your team, if I'm constantly learning new things about the business way of doing things, I feel like that holds you slightly more accountable if me as your employee is learning about it. I just feel like it's a great way for companies to build within.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like be
Yes.
strong within
Yeah.
together as a
Yeah.
team.
I think this goes back to our people first mentality, right? Like,
Mhm.
how can we build our own people up? And like, part of that is like understanding the bigger picture of why we're even doing a thing. Like, how do we build a stronger team? How do we build a
Right.
stronger business? That's got to be done by everyone at the company, not just
Right.
ownership. It better not just be done by
A
ownership because
lot
you're not
of
going to have the buy-in.
right, a lot of our books, actually, I know Unreasonable Hospitality mentions it. I actually think Know What You're For mentions it as well, but with your company culture should create a bit of a buy-in, and your company internally should be so well off that they like your employees want to build for you and for them. You know what I mean? Like build
Mm-hmm.
together. I keep
Mm-hmm.
saying that, but I feel like that's what we're doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Probably should move to what I think is our last book on today's list, which is 21 Laws of Leadership. And
Mhm.
man, I love leadership development books, and John Maxwell is gotta be like the foremost authority on it of our time anyway.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
a million other great books like Good to Great and How to Make Friend. What is it? How to Win
Oh, I have no idea.
Friends, something like that. It's a really long title. That one's a really great one too. But 21 Laws of Leadership. What I loved about it, it was a rule per chapter, right? So each chapter talks about a different rule of what makes you into a great leader. And I was reading 21 Laws of Leadership or listening to it. At the same time we were filming and editing. Well, I think it was just maybe during the filming. I think I finished it by the time we got to edit. But while we were filming Nice Job Cowgirl. And I think what I loved about 21 Laws of Leadership is one, I felt like it made me at least more conscious of how I can be a better leader and certainly working on, on those items.
Mhm.
I think 21 Laws is a lot to achieve, right? I don't think you achieve those overnight, but it was fun to read along with that, knowing that we're making a film basically on leadership and mentorship
Mhm.
and knowing that we all admired Judy, but like why do we admire Judy Wagner, right?
Mhm.
Our admiration for Judy Wagner is somewhat rooted in this book. Somewhat defined by these 21 laws that Judy pretty well checks off every dang one, right? And I think we're good at some on some days and maybe not so good at others on
Right.
the same day, right? But the goal is that over a lifetime, you have developed this ability to naturally achieve at least naturally achieve the 21 laws, right?
Mhm.
As a whole. And I think that his book, John Maxwell's book, 21 Laws of Leadership, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, if we're getting the title right. Sorry, John. Um, Hopefully, if you got this in your keywords, we got the title right. We'll get it right in the show notes. But 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership um, became basically my opener speech to the premiere of the film because it really sort of helped us or like helped again. I feel like this is again like helped us frame up a thing we already knew, right? Like that's kind of how
Mhm.
I felt about Know What You're For. Like we're already doing that
Mhm.
thing, but this is another way of saying it, another way of framing it up.
Right.
And I felt
Right.
like 21 Laws did that for me with Judy. And we all know Judy's an incredible leader, an incredible mentor. So being able to sort of put a bow on it, I thought was pretty
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
But that one's a must read as well. Um, I mean, I've read a million other books, right? I'm reading Shoe Dog right now. I've read Good to Great. That's a great one. There's just an endless amount of business development books that we could go along. You can see that I have kind of a stack going on back there, but I think that these ones are ones that we've read in the last year and a half, maybe.
I think Creativity Inc. was pretty like a couple years ago,
Might have been 2 years ago.
but Know What You're For was pretty. That was a good chunk too. But I think everything else has been pretty. I feel like we end one and we start a new one now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
we
I think so
constantly
too.
are. Yeah. Um, have you? I don't know. I think I'm slightly a bit more addicted to reading. I probably have some more time than you do to read. Um, any books that you didn't expect to be personal and professional development type books that you ended up taking like notes from?
Um, I'm sure. I feel like I kind of seek those out though now, right? Like I want
You
to
do.
read something
Yeah.
that I can learn from now.
Hmm.
I feel like Shoe Dog maybe is sort of one of those, right? It's more of a biography on Phil Knight, or an
Hmm.
autobiography, I suppose. He wrote it himself. And that one, like, is more of like his development of Nike.
Hmm.
Being from Oregon, it's pretty cool to be only an hour from where Nike started.
Hmm.
Not that I'm a Duck fan. Go Beavs. Take that, Duck fans.
Serious.
But Nike is a born out of old Uncle Phil U of O culture, right? And you have to hand it to him on that. The Nike is no one doesn't know Nike, right? Nike is
Hmm.
huge. And
Right.
so I feel like what's kind of been cool about reading Shoe Dog, which it's kind of it's a read. It's going to take you a little bit, but I think I have about 4 hours left on the audiobook, and I've probably listened to 12 plus hours
Hmm.
of it so far. So it's not short, but I think what I love about that book is that, you know, Nike appears to have happened overnight from all of our
Hmm.
perspectives, right? Like Nike just showed up on the scene
Yeah.
and is the giant that it is. But when you're reading the book, like it was not that at all. So listening to the struggles, the wins, the losses, the nearly crashes that Blue
Hmm.
Ribbon then turned Nike basically endured and overcame.
Right.
That's kind of been one of those for me, right? Is like you can
Hmm.
learn something from everyone, and I think that that's sort of one of those where it was more of an autobiography, less of a
Hmm.
here's a how to.
Right. Yeah, I do appreciate those. I'm gonna wrap this up pretty quick because I have a question for you at the end. But Ina Garten's memoir, is that how you say memoir? I don't that I kind of
Memoir.
hang up on the word, so please don't bully me in the comments of this podcast by saying. But loved her book. I feel like I took some professional things from that. Like she built her, well, actually, she bought Barefoot Contessa, but completely like rebuilt it to her own scale. I get like to be her own. Also, this weekend, I pulled a 2 day reading binge on Hillbilly Elegy. It's JD Vance's book. That was good. Not to go into politics or whatever, like absolutely at all. But great book on literally coming from absolutely nothing and being the vice president of our country. Like
Yeah.
that was an incredible read. Great, yeah, pretty inspiring, I feel like. So that was good
Yeah.
too. But
I feel like a lot of those memoirs, biographies, autobiographies, like you can learn something from them even if you didn't intend to, So,
yeah,
I'm a fan too,
yeah. Well, I
especially
just,
builders, right? Like I'm
mhm,
I'm here to listen to all the builders or the come from nothings, right? That's
yeah.
sort
Well,
of
it's
the
just like
underdog
a,
story we all love.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. Um, Okay. Well, at the end of all of our episodes, we always ask, what is your soft launch to Monday? How do you prepare for the week? And I don't think we've had a chance to ask you yet. So I want to ask you.
We might have talked about it a little bit in the goals episode, but for me, it's getting back on track with how did we do last week and how do we do better next week, right? So,
Hmm.
I think I'm with you. I think at one point in time you had mentioned clearing out your email of things that maybe don't need to take up the week reading, right? Like I'm subscribed to quite a few email marketing pieces that a lot of them are educational, right? Like I've got everything from aviation to marketing
Mm-hmm.
emails that come through.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives me a chance to catch up on any email marketing that any of our clients have done or any brands that I love and admire have done. But the most important thing for me is going over our goal sheet. So I go through and I usually actually wait to fill out my sheet until Sunday because I like to be the last one in there. I really like to kind of scroll through everybody else's stuff. My goals are at the very bottom. And a lot of times, like I glean, I don't know, inspiration from the things that you guys have been doing all week. And
It sounds like you're copying us.
it just puts my head on straight, like it just makes you a little bit proud that we're all pulling together on these things. But
Do you know that that
anyway, so I
infuriates
fill
me?
out why.
That you don't, because I want to read yours when I put mine in, and they're never there.
I do it
I'm gonna start,
literally on
I'm gonna
purpose.
start
So
holding mine out.
so Sunday, right before I do our video, right? So every Sunday I do a sort of monologue podcast style team meeting, quote unquote, where we go over a few things. I like to go over our mission. I like to go over our vision. I like to tell a story that supports those from the previous week. Go over any wins and losses for the week, and I do go over losses when we've got them. And then I go over our goal sheet, right, one at a time, and I go through every single person's goal and their current update. And sometimes I'm tweaking, sometimes I'm asking questions, sometimes I'm suggesting, or like if I happen to hear somebody else working on something that maybe could have helped, suggesting that maybe y'all talk to each other, sort of thing, to keep us working on the same goals, or we could be helping each other in certain areas. And then at the end, just sort of a wrap of all of that, right? Like, what does it really mean to be achieving these goals, and why are we doing them? Why do we care? And like, really what the team's done for the last week. And it's kind of a weekly celebration of wins, right? Which is pretty fun.
Mhm.
And maybe solution building of losses or things that didn't go very well or didn't get anywhere or got stuck or whatever. But primarily it's for me, it's kind of a weekly celebration. And I think that there's a lot of people that like have like a daily diary, right? And they like write 3 things good that happened that day, right? I know
Mhm.
there's a lot of like psychologists and things like that that suggest that for people if they're having trouble seeing the positive in life. But for me, like this is kind of that within the business, right? It's like, how are we
Mhm.
doing? It's a pulse check, and I just love doing that update. So that's my primary work related soft launch to Monday. Secondary, depending on the week, is usually unpacking my suitcase because it probably didn't get unpacked all week
As
from
one
whatever
would.
the most recent trip was. I
Mhm.
didn't get it done yesterday,
Oh my
or I guess
god.
Sunday, or this last Sunday. So, yeah, I've got
Well,
to
yesterday was Monday,
work
so
on that. Yeah, I guess it was
yeah,
2 days
it
ago,
was.
but my bag from our last trip is not unpacked.
Mhm.
Sometimes I unpack it just to repack it again, which is probably what's going to happen this week. But anyway, yeah, that's my typical soft launch to Monday.
Well, thanks. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing. Love
sweet.
that. Still
Well,
mad at that though.
she's not going to get over the goals thing
I
on
won't.
Sunday. I
Mm-mm.
love doing it that way, so we'll have to talk about that later. Anyway, I think that's episode 6. I hope you guys like these book notes episodes. We will certainly be doing these where we're reviewing them right after we read them and doing one book at a time in the future. These are some of our favorite titles: Unreasonable Hospitality, Know What You're For, Creativity Inc., 21 Laws of Leadership, Main Street Millionaire, Dead Fish Don't Swim Upstream, Atomic Habits, and others we mentioned in this episode. We'll put a full list in the show notes on the website if you're interested in purchasing or listening to or any of those. Highly recommend every single one on that list. So we hope this episode was a great soft launch to your Monday. Yours.